Hey everyone, it's time again to recap the latest news in the solar PV industry, compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is what's happening in the wonderful world of solar for the week of October 12th. The Department of Energy is circulating a new list of energy project grant cancellations just a week after it announced plans to cancel over 300 grants exclusively in states that had voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. The new list is of over 600 projects, and these do include grants that were awarded in red states as well. The more than 600 federal grants total more than $20 billion in grant funding. Unlike the funding cuts announced last week, which focused primarily on wind and solar projects, these cancellations include hydrogen projects focused on natural gas, tied to carbon capture that were backed by many Republicans. They also include grants issued by the Grid Deployment Office, which aims to boost the U.S. electrical grid, and the Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chain, which funds new mineral projects, grid expansion, as well as the U.S. mineral development were previously announced as priorities of the Trump administration. 8 plaintiffs filed suit last week against the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, for its termination of the Solar for All project, alleging that the termination was unconstitutional. The Solar for All program was enacted by the Biden administration in April of 2024 and was intended to deliver residential solar projects to over 900,000 low-income households nationwide. The plaintiffs argue that the executive branch didn't have the statutory authority to rescind the $7 billion in funding. Congress had repealed large parts of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund in July of this year, but had left previously awarded funding intact and did not cancel projects retroactively. As seen in the previous headlines, the Trump administration has targeted renewable energy, claiming it's responsible for driving up electricity prices. But an analysis of recently released government data confirms that the states that are growing their wind and solar power typically have lower power costs than the states that rely primarily on fossil fuels. The data from the Trump's own administration shows a sizable drop in renewable energy power costs during the last 2 decades. Among the 22 states that drew higher than average shares of their power from wind and solar, 17 had below average electricity prices, according to the EIA data. U.S. power prices rose an average of 23.4% from June 2021 to June of this year, posing a growing political problem for the administration, especially after Trump promised to cut power and gasoline costs in half during his first year in office. Globally, the International Energy Agency, or the IEA, forecasts renewable power capacity will double by 2030, increasing 4.6 terawatts. But the group revised down its estimates for the U.S. deployments during that period by almost 50% from last year's estimates, according to a report issued last week. Installations in China are also expected to slow due to policy rules that go into effect in that country. One rule change that went into effect May 1st made it more difficult to connect rooftop solar to the grid, while another that started in June 1st of this year removed price protections that had all but guaranteed profits for wind and solar developers. The agency's medium-term forecast report predicts solar will account for almost 80% of the 4.6 terawatts of renewable energy that will be added across the world over the second half of this decade. The report says low costs, faster permitting, and broad social acceptance will continue to drive this accelerated pace of adoption. The growth of solar in markets other than the U.S. and China are expected to continue to grow at a rapid rate, but not fast enough to offset the significant reductions in those two nations. EIA's latest report lowers its renewable energy growth forecasting by 5% compared to last year's publication. And CEA has announced it's launching solarrecycling.org, a new platform to strengthen the long-term sustainability of solar and storage and connect industry leaders with recycling partners. This website includes an interactive map of collection sites for recyclable equipment, as well as the locations of CEA's vetted PV recycling partners, information on industry standards and recycling best practices, a roundup of state and local legislation concerning end-of-life management for solar equipment, as well as reports, fact sheets, and other resources on safety and environmental health of solar equipment. And that is the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.